And you have. Go on. All right. So the final seconds tick away here. We'll officially get started here in just a moment. There we are. All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the Columbia 911 Communications District Special Board of Directors meeting for December 5th, 2024. For board members' attendance, we have Jeff Flack in person, Bruce Folsey via Zoom, Henry Heimmuller in person, Shelley Hennessy via Zoom, and myself, Rob Anderson. What do you do, staff?
Yes, for staff, Danielle Cooper, operations manager, Andy Nichols, CFO, Mary Jo Beck, office specialist, Nathan Hughes, IT manager. Online, we have Chandra Egan, CAD specialist, and one other, looks like maybe a citizen.
It's a person to be, so we don't know, unfortunately.
And then our general counsel, Michael Peterkin.
And double checking with Bruce, Shelley, and Michael. You can hear us okay?
You're a little garbled, Rob. At least from my end. I don't know if other remote participants can hear clearly.
All right, if I speak this way towards the screen, is that any better?
You are, Danielle, you were a little garbled when you were speaking, so
Okay, am I a little bit better now?
no.
I turned off the AC, so hopefully that'll help a little bit.
Okay, yeah, the AC should be shutting off here in a moment, so hopefully that'll take care of some of the background noise.
Look where the B, say who they are.
It's up to them. If they're doing public testimony, we would ask them to say who they are, but online, if they're just a B, that is their choice. So go ahead and see if there's any public comment. I want to pause a second to make sure that the lobby has a chance to put in, raise a hand or to indicate. Nothing, Nathan?
Nothing.
All right. We'll move on to the employment of an interim executive director, interview of applicants. Henry, if you're good as the personnel committee, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you and Shelley.
Thank you, Rob. The Personnel Committee has not met specifically to interview our candidate here today. The candidate that we have in the room here today is Brian Burright, a known entity to this organization and others, having been a long-term fire assistant fire chief and firefighter paramedic here in Columbia River Fire and Rescue. He also has served as our interim executive director of this agency in the past. And so Shelley and I, as the personnel committee, have not done anything other than communicate with Special Districts Association as they have initially brought forth a panel of two potential candidates, one of which pulled their hat out of the ring in the process. So what SDAO is providing to us is Brian to interview for this position, and hopefully if it's a good fit between Brian and us, as it has been in the past, perhaps we can take action and get in place. But of course, most importantly, as far as I'm concerned, and I believe that Shelley would agree, it's important for all of us as board members to dig deep into Brian's background and some of our issues that we have, both from funding standpoint and hiring personnel and things like that, to replace him down the road as an interim, if he were hired as the interim, to make sure that we're not certainly answering Brian's questions as well, because we don't want there to be any surprises from either side. So with that, Shelley, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay, so if with your pleasure, Mr. Chair, if we can just ask Brian to kind of, I think all have gotten a copy of his resume. And if anyone hasn't gotten a copy of it, Mary Jo, can we?
I don't have it, so.
Oh, did SDA, let me put it a different way. Did SDAO send that to each one of the board members?
I have not.
I.
Okay, well then I'll let Brian start talking a little bit about himself while I try to figure out if I've got that email and I can forward it to you all.
George,
Perfect.
George said he was gonna send it to the board, but maybe just to you, Henry, to distribute.
Shelley, did you get a copy of that?
No, I did not.
Okay, well, apparently he just sent it to me and I did not realize I was supposed to be the distributor of said document.
Well, while you're looking that up, Henry, just want to double check with Mr. Peterkin. Now that the fans turned off, are we less garbled?
Yes.
Perfect. And is there any input you have before we get started?
I think Henry framed the purpose of this meeting very well. And if I have questions, I will jump in. But otherwise, we should proceed.
Right. Yeah, they're working on getting that produced for us. Thank you, Brian, about the pause.
Oh, no problem.
And as mentioned, the day here is with the relatively short notice and retirement of our executive director. The process we are doing right now is to try to quickly onboard an interim executive director to help fill the role, provide guidance for the next couple months, and as we establish the process for filling the role permanently.
And those, she'll be back in a few minutes with those.
Okay. Leave to the board's pleasure. Do we want to let Brian start, or do you want to wait till you have a copy of the resume first?
I'd say have it.
We haven't. Sure. Well, I'll just give you a quick brief. As shown in the resume that you'll be given shortly, but 32 years in the fire service, paramedic, firefighter, company officer, and eventually retired as a division chief in charge of EMS. I retired in 2013. Pretty quickly then started doing some consulting with Special Districts Association of Oregon. I did that for 5 years. Multitude of different assignments, 2 of which were interim assignments, one for 2 years down at Western Lane Ambulance District, and then for a year here at Columbia 911 District. That was in 2017 to 2018. I then went, oddly enough, to a security job at Legacy Healthcare Systems. I did that for a year, which was a very eye-opening experience, one that I'll always remember. And then my wife pretty much just told me that it's time to retire, and we did some travel for 4 years, full-time travel across the United States, and then came back to Oregon, settled back, primarily because my parents are requiring a little bit more support and care. So we currently live in a floating home in Portland, on the North Portland Harbor. Enjoying that. We've done that for 2 years and just staying active and enjoying life.
What, I mean, I think that you've kind of been brought up to speed, probably by Chief Dunkel, about some of the challenges that Columbia 911 is currently facing, and would really love to have you ask us any questions or concerns that you may have from some of that. I mean, the number one thing that 1, 2, and 3 that come to my mind are our radio system project, our levy that has now failed twice this year, and then of course hiring a new executive director. And we've got other challenges like every other agency has out there, but thoughts, concerns, things that we may be able to help you with?
You know, I really haven't come up to speed completely. I mean, George has talked to me briefly and you know, just through some communication, I've kind of heard about some of the things that your projects and your levy, especially, I did hear that didn't get approved. But other than that, you know, really, I haven't been in the loop as far as some of the project advancements, things that were present and we were working on in 2017 to 18. I'm not sure, how those have evolved and what new projects you might be as far as the radio system. I think when I left, we were just implementing the new CAD system. Be interested to see how that has evolved and if it's everything that we thought it was going to be or not. But yeah, it pretty much would be interested in catching up and finding out what's happening today.
Can I ask a question, Henry?
Well, please, I was just gonna say, shall we expound on some of that, but, Mr. Chair.
Now, like,
Yeah, so Brian, it's very nice to first of all meet you, and second, thank you for coming today. One of the challenges here is to find a permanent executive director. I think the last time the board tried to do this, it took over a year. And so will you commit to the board until we find a permanent executive director? And it could be up to a year.
Good question, and something that I have considered is how much time would I be willing to wholly commit in the process? I think my experience and SDO's experience, as well as some of the experience with Columbia 911 in the hiring processes over the years, is that sometimes the process doesn't bear fruit as far as somebody that is the right candidate for the district. So sometimes 3 months, 4 months into the process, you go back and you do it again because you haven't quite found the right connection. I like retirement. I mean, I'll be very honest, and it's very difficult for me to kind of come back to a long-term commitment. I think if everything were to go as it could go, 4 months to 6 months would be my expectations, a solid commitment for those timeframes. If it were to go over that, I mean, I think I would never abandon the district and try to create this need to get another interim if we had, something in the progress that was gonna work out. But I will tell you that the decision is not mine alone. It's also my wife's and my family. And like I said, we're enjoying our life right now, and I don't know how long of a commitment I would be willing to agree to. But certainly within the parameters that I think we would be successful if we ran a good recruitment selection process, 3 months, 4 months to 6 months would be, in my mind, what I'd be able to commit to.
Well, I think the board can commit to you that we will diligently start the employment process and hopefully find a permanent executive director within your time frame. That certainly is our goal. So
Right.
thank you for that. That's all I have, Mr. President and board
Well,
members.
and I would just add to that. I think, some of the success of finding the right person is largely dependent on some identified recruitment, selected recruitment of people that are in the business, that are known quantities, that are looking to sit in a position of a director. And I think, just as an open application process, you really don't know sometimes what you're going to get and if the person matches their resumes and all of their experience. So I think, I lean toward, and George can discuss this to more detail, but I think, a fairly good recruitment process before you know, the whole application process begins or hiring process begins is advantageous to finding somebody that's suitable for the district, a good match. Thanks.
Appreciate your straightforward honesty on that, Brian. I understand where you're coming from about retirement and then being back in the, you know, it's hard to leave that to come back just for to help us out, but I do appreciate that. But I do, again, no, you know, just to make sure that there's no, you know, smoke screen on how much work this is going to be. We've got that piece, but then we also, you know, even shorter term have to be looking at our levy.
Right.
Which, you know, I can't speak for the board, but I would anticipate that we'll be shooting for a May election again to try to get that levy passed. And so there's gonna be kind of these two high priorities running simultaneous to one another, kind of two different things, but they also, I mean, even though you've got a solid staff here, they do require the point person, you know, and that you know, I think it's not going to be a small challenge. I just want to make sure that, and I know you certainly can handle it if you want to.
Right, right.
Want to make sure that we don't.
Well, in consideration of how to move forward, just entertaining myself as a candidate or exploring other options, but I feel compelled to also just share some of my personal family, extended family situation, which can have some bearing to my commitment to anything long-term or within that 6-month period. My parents, both living independently in the house that I grew up in. Dad's 92, mom's 88. Dad was diagnosed with two fairly serious medical conditions that sounded fairly dire. He elected not to have any interventions, which I totally agree with, but that's something that could shift at any given time. My brother-in-law, my only sibling, my sister, her husband is in the final stages of ALS, and I don't expect him to struggle much longer with that disease process. And then my sister, who has been kind of keeping everybody together, just got diagnosed with colon cancer about a month ago. So she's undergoing some treatment as well. I only mention that, not that it's unusual for those challenges to hit everybody. I mean, we've all gone through them, right? But it seems like it's kind of all come at a similar time or in the same timeframes, and any one of those could shift my priorities, to tell you the honest to God truth, of being able to commit time to anything other than supporting my family the way they need to. So I just want to be clear with you guys that that is something. If you decide that you need to expand the search for interim candidate, then I fully understand that.
Thank you.
Shelley, do you have any questions?
I don't believe I have any questions. I think Brian is a good candidate for this position, but I understand his priorities in life. We all get that, I think. And I think if we decide to offer this to Brian, I think we're gonna have to keep that in the back of our mind that it may not be the whole time. We may have to be looking at something else.
Right, and knowing, I think Brian's worked with us before and has had rapport with the district in the past, that we understand that Brian would conduct himself in giving us as much notice as possible if that were to be the case.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not
It's not-
suggesting that I would abandon or abruptly leave. It would be sufficient time to make sure we had plan B in place.
May I ask a question, Mr. President?
Yes.
I think that maybe Brian should talk about whether he's looking for a salary position or an hourly. And I think that the board should also think about that as well. or it could be a combination of salary, and then if Brian had medical family issues, maybe it could be an hourly, but I think it's a worthy discussion. How is this going to work going forward? And the reason I ask that is I have to draft the contract, so I need some guidance.
As far as I'm concerned, either way, whatever's best for the district. And I do believe there is a contract. I couldn't find it. I went back through my files and I could not find the contract that Aiken Blitz, and I had created and board agreed to in 2017. But I think we should be able to find a record of that. George was going to check and see if he had that agreement. But that would give us something to review and draft from if that was appropriate still.
Thank you. Yeah, because like I said, out of this process as it was dealt with the personnel committee, but I understand. Yeah, because being a retired PERS member, that is also something has to be worked around and.
Yeah, I haven't even, to be honest, Rob, I haven't even looked at what impacts that has with my current retirement situation. Social Security. I'll have to get some help and advice on that.
Did you have a follow-up on that, Michael?
Uh,
If you needed?
I would recommend a salary to begin. I think that's the best way of going forward. And then if there's a change, then we can talk about it at that time. We thought about an independent contractor versus an employment status, but I think under these circumstances, it's an employment, not a personal service contract, because a host of reasons. And so, yes, Brian, certainly you would be an employee, and yes, I think you do need to check on what effect that may or may not have on your PERS and Social Security benefits.
Right.
Bruce, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. On the comment side, though, is I've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Burright. I actually worked under him and then worked with him. And all the time that I've ever worked with him, it's been great. And to be honest with you, in my personal opinion, I don't think you could have a better candidate than Mr. Burright.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. Jeff?
Oh, nothing that hasn't already been said. I guess the only other thing I could think of is, if selected, what's on your plate here is, could you start tomorrow? Could it be next week? Could it be next month? What?
Today.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, again, just reiterating that I do need to go back and discuss the details with my wife. And make sure that everything is okay with that aspect. I've kind of heard that January 1st would be a potential start date that was identified, but I don't know if that's needs to move forward or backwards. I don't really have anything planned. I would like to go down and visit our youngest son and our new grandbaby in Texas at some point in January. But other than that, we don't have any travel plans or any vacations that are scheduled. So I'm pretty open.
For the board, my goal was to, depending on the board's directions to me today, would be to work with Brian, get a form of an employment agreement that was acceptable to him within the parameters that the board provided to me, and then present the employment contract for the board on the 17th. Now that may be a little ambitious, but we don't have an executive director at this point. But that was kind of my timeline, but that leaves open the start date, which can be negotiated and worked around. And in the meantime, Danelle has been taking the role, and she's doing kind of double duty, and she's doing a good job. So that's kind of what I'm looking at from the legal standpoint. And I don't know how that fits with Brian's schedule and Brian's timeline. But that's my suggested timeline.
Michael, what, are you talking about the 12th?
Yes,
Okay, you said 17th. I just wanted to
I'm
make sure.
sorry, I misspoke. Yes, the 12th.
And I would just say, Mr. President, that actually Danelle right now is on triple duty with her regular job, her filling the dispatch floor, plus doing the work of the executive director. So I think time is of the essence to keep from stacking more on our existing staff to make things more untenable for them personally. But
And if none of the board members object, with some senior staff present, I would like to see if they have any questions. Danielle, do you have any questions?
A little bit of a comment, like I really, am on the same page as you as far as our top 3 objectives and the things that we need to get to work on right away. And so I'm willing and ready to, support Peterkin and Brian if he ends up doing it and whatever it needs to be done. I like the idea of attracting some known candidates. I was at some recent meetings down with Alcomina, and there's not a large pool of people out there due to things, but I had one question, and I apologize if I should already know this, but have you had any experience working with levies and going out for?
I believe we successfully passed a levy while I was here, in 2017. I have to double check, but I think we were up for a levy at that point. When I was at Western Lane Ambulance, we had a levy that was up for election, successfully passed. And then, the fire district has had its share of renewals for levies in the past. So to answer your question, some experience in participating as trying to get levies renewed.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that. I kind of figured that you had. And when we looked back at stuff here, and I think that it was 2018.
Yeah,
That
it
we
was,
could-
it was either right on the heels of when I left or during the time that I was here.
Thank you. I don't have anything more than that.
All of my questions have been answered, the timeline and contract and all of that. Excited to, if we go down this path.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that I can't remember if I specifically said that it would, again, 3 months to 6 months, but also part-time. And that would be a question for the board, is how much you need somebody on site in the chair. But I think 24 hours a week would be kind of my preference, not a 5-day a week, 40-hour a week step.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, what, oh, no, you're fine.
Brian, could you clarify that for me? Would that be when you first started or later, or I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the 24-hour a week.
Well, I think just a 24-hour a week commitment to be on site, and able to, you know, do whatever needs to be done. Of course, anything that came up that would require more time than that, I'd be more than willing to do. But if the expectation of the board for the interim is that somebody is here Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week, I don't know that I'd be willing to do that. And that would be for the duration of my contract or.
Yeah, that was my question, kind of as needed, if something came up and we really needed the, you know, then good, but
Sure.
preferred the 24 hour.
Yeah.
And all right, Henry, can you take over for a minute?
Sure.
It's school and it's a kid, so I
No,
didn't think
please.
that real quick.
If there's any,
Danielle, there's a question on.
sure, if there's any staff input on that, like that, you're talking like 3 days a week. I think that we can work with that. If that's, you know, at the pleasure of the board, but.
Well, as long as you guys work together so that
Exactly.
when you're here, and you're not gonna be here the next day or whatever, you guys are cleared up so that the expectations on you are well identified. And I think the two of you could work together really well to make sure that that happens. And especially if Danelle has the ability to drop a phone call or an email to you as other days, you know, for clarification and stuff, because things are bound to come up.
Sure, yeah, and I fully expect that. And if that would be acceptable to the interim position at those hours, I would probably try to make it fixed so that the staff and board and public would know the days that I would be on site. So whether Monday through Wednesday or Wednesday to Friday, whichever corresponds and works best with meetings that might occur, senior staff meetings. The board meeting now currently is Wednesdays,
No, Thursday, the last Thursday.
last Thursday. And it's what time?
Fourth Thursday.
The fourth, fourth Thursday at 9.
Okay, good. So,
Mickey.
With a relationship with myself and a director, I would need a little bit of flexibility because payroll and AP happen at set times that fluctuate during the month, right? So the 5th and the 20th are those days. And about 3 days prior is when I start that process and need your approvals.
sure.
So as
Yeah,
long as there was a little flexibility with set, because it might be a day that doesn't end up on a day that you've committed to, like, Monday, Tuesday or whatever.
that'd be fine.
Well, and then again, if it was necessary, if Brian was out of town or something, you know, Rob or I could step in
Absolutely.
as we've done so far to help out with that. Well, you know, I guess where I am in this situation is I've known Brian as a friend for many, many, many years, decades, unfortunately, I have to say.
Yeah.
And as a colleague and certainly as someone who has helped us out in this position before. And I understand your limitations. When you start talking about the health issues of your family, I'm mirroring that on my side of the table right now. And so I get all of that and I understand where your priorities have to be. And again, I think that having someone who can fully focus while they're here, even part-time for a limited number of months, is going to get us over the hump of getting that new executive director position filled and the permanent executive director position filled. And with that, unless there's a reason not to do this today, I would move that we authorize Michael Peterkin to enter into negotiations with Brian Burright for a contract for employment for this interim position. Second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to authorize Michael Peterkin to enter into a agreement to work with the contract for hiring Brian Burright as the interim executive director. Discussion. Shelley, do you have any additional?
I don't. I'm in agreement. I think Brian's the right person to help us out.
Bruce?
No, I think it's the right thing to do, and I think Brian will do an excellent job.
Henry's recommendation versus and what I see on the resume, I like what I see and I hear, so.
That's all I need to say.
All right, and everyone has already asked every question that was on my list during the interview process. Hearing no additional questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous. All opposed? Obviously none. All right. Michael Peterkin, is there any additional discussion we need to have with you, either in open or executive session at this point?
We could have a very short executive session to talk about a couple of transition issues. But it will be 10 minutes or less. It's at the pleasure of the board, but probably should. And then I need the contact information for Brian, and I also would like a copy of his resume, please. If Mary Jo could send that to me.
Do that. Sorry, that was an oversight.
Thank you, Brian, for being willing to do this.
Well, thank you guys for the consideration and. Yep, I'll work with Michael, I guess, and kind of give you the definitive answer from my standpoint, but sounds like something that would be workable and a good thing. Wouldn't do it for any other organization. Let me just say that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, I will say this, Brian, that I'm certainly looking forward to working with you. I've heard really great things about you, and so it's important for me to have someone that I can work with, and so thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. All right.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, we will go ahead and spend the normal meeting here at 10:37. Secure the room before entering executive session under ORS 192-660, section 2H, consult with legal counsel.
Hey, Rob.
Yes, Bruce.
Yeah, I gotta get off.
All right.
Right. So
Thank you.
guys, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much for letting us know.
All right, thanks.
Take
Bye.
care.
Yeah.
Open up. I think we just leave the door. Oh. Roll. All right, recording is going again. Online lobby is open. The door is open to the room. We are resuming normal session here at 11:10. On the agenda, we have possible action. I do not believe there's any to take. Hearing none, there's no other business. Members' comments.
Thanks, everybody, for coming together short notice like this. It was a miracle that we happened to find a window. And thanks to SDAO for bringing Brian to us, and Michael for you adjusting your schedule to be here as well. So we got one little step down the trail here. So thanks to everybody. And thanks especially to staff members for all the extra stuff, and it's gonna be a bit of a challenge.
Jeff.
I'll just echo what Henry said. Special thanks to Danielle for the triple duty. I thought it was just double duty, but triple duty. So that's Greatly appreciate it.
Shelley?
Well, Henry, of course, said everything the rest of us were gonna say, so, we do appreciate everything that everybody's doing to get through this, cause it's difficult and it's understood.
Yes. Again, thanks to all staff. We understand this is kind of a rocky moment right now, and we're trying to do everything as timely as we can for you. But again, making sure we're doing everything appropriately. Hopefully we are on that path. Hearing no other comments, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 11:12.